Welcome, everyone. I'm Marquita Solis, the live stream host of all-creatures.org. All-creatures.org was founded in 1998 and is a leading resource for faith-based animal rights veganism. Led by our executive director, Tams Nicholson, we provide free resources for people seeking to live compassionately towards all creatures. Our extensive library includes vegan sermons and commentaries, animal rights strategies, action alerts, events, and works by various vegan authors. We also sponsor websites for animal rights organizations. Our mission is to unite compassionate individuals worldwide who honor the dignity of all creatures. So today we're very honored to welcome Tobias Leenaert. Tobias is an accomplished speaker, author of How to Create a Vegan World. He's the co-founder of Proveg International, and he lives at a small sanctuary in Belgium. He likes to think out of the box, and he calls himself the slow opinionist. So everyone that's joining us, please let us know where you're joining from and get your questions in the chat or comments. And welcome, Tobias. I'm excited to talk to you today.
Hi, thanks for having me here.
Well, thanks everyone for your patience. Y'all, we had a few tech difficulties. I'd like to start off, Tobias, by asking you about how did you start your vegan journey?
The beginning is with animals, the animals that we had at our house, dogs and chickens and cats. And I at one point I asked a question like comparing or putting next to each other a dog and a cow, like seeing the dog in our house who was being cuddled and seeing the cow in the rain in the meadow and knowing that we were going to eat her or that we ate beef. I was wondering what the differences were between those two species, and I couldn't find anything that was morally relevant. And so I concluded, okay, I have to stop eating animals. I have to stop eating cows and chickens and pigs and treat them like my dog, basically. And problem was that I really loved eating meat, and I couldn't put that idea or that desire into practice until maybe 10 years, 12 years later when I was at university, just because I just kept eating meat every time again I chose to have meat. So it helps me to understand why for many people it's not easy to wean yourself of animal products, even though it's of course a lot easier today than it was when I did it which is like 25, 30 years ago.
So that's very interesting. I mean, it was almost like a very logical process for you, your journey.
Well, it was based on a rational thought and on empathy for animals, because I really loved animals always, and I had a lot of empathy for them. I would help like the chickens that we were raising to eat. I would help the ones that were sick or crippled or whatever, and I put them in a box inside. And it came very natural to me. And then that was combined with logical arguments, I guess, that led me eventually during my university years to become vegetarian first, and then write my master's thesis about the human-animal relationship. And by then I was so convinced of this topic that the only thing I wanted to do was to help animals. And then I went to the US for 6 months to do internships at animal rights organizations. This is 25 years ago. And when I came back, I started my own organization.
That's amazing. Well, what did your family and friends think when you went vegetarian and vegan?
I think my mom was always health conscious, and she used to cook vegetarian now and then, which I didn't like at all. I protested against it. And at some point when I became vegetarian, she went along. When I went vegan, she first objected, saying it wasn't healthy probably, and I shouldn't be too extreme, etc. And then now she's more or less vegan herself. My dad also doesn't eat meat in the house. And yeah, my brother is not somebody I have had much of an impact on, apparently, because he still eats meat. But generally, I didn't have any trouble with my family in that regard.
Well, that's good. And did you have a lot of vegan friends in the beginning, or did you look for vegan friends?
I made a change together with my girlfriend and my best friend. So that definitely helped. And then there were activists at the university. I got into a group of people connected to an organization, NGO, and pretty soon pretty soon this was all that I was surrounded with were people who cared about this and who wanted to do something about it. And this is still the case today.
Well, that's good to hear. So, what's been one of your most memorable vegan moments?
Hmm. Um, it's hard to say in 25 years, but I remember this is an early moment in '98 when I went to the United States to do internships. And the first one was at PETA. And I arrived at the intern house, like just I was all by myself. I was 21 years old. It was the first time I came to America. And they brought me into this intern house where I would spend 2 months with 4 or 5 other interns a bit younger than I was. And it was so amazing how, like, from the first moment I felt at home, and I felt like okay, and I fell asleep like very happily, like knowing that, like, okay, this was going to be good. And this was, yeah, these were people who wanted the same things as I did. And back then that was still very special. uh, yeah. And I those people that I met then 25 years ago, they're still my friends today. One of them is coming over in a couple of weeks, actually.
Well, that is beautiful. I know when you kind of have, well, not kind of, but when you have the same core values, it brings a sense of peace. And
Mm-hmm.
it's a different sense. I mean, for me, when I'm around vegans, now, I don't want this to sound terrible. I mean, it's just different, you know. It's different because we have that something very strong. I mean, something that we really believe in, um, and very deeply, and it is a connection.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you know that there's no explaining to do. You don't have to convince the other people of anything. You're not judged. You are all caring deeply about this thing, and there is a lot of power in that. I think if you're surrounded by people who don't care deeply about something that you care deeply about, I think that's basically very tough. It must be something like, yeah, other people can't understand this, but I tell them sometimes, like, suppose you are against slavery, but you were born in the late 1700s or something, and everybody agreed with slavery, and everybody found it completely normal, and you were wondering, like, what is happening? How is this possible? How is not everybody reacting against this? And so in that case too, it was very valuable, I think, to have some people at least together with you who were like-minded and who told you weren't crazy. Like they would say that, yeah, of course, even though 95% of the world is thinking differently, um, we're right. We're right to see this as cruelty and as injustice and as exploitation.
And what would you say to someone that might be watching that's struggling and sad and depressed about people laughing at them?
Yeah, well, I would say, like, first of all, if you don't have that sense of community, try to find it. If it's not in real life, then at least online. And there's always going to be, I mean, you can, of course, live in the middle of nowhere where there's nobody, but I live in the countryside, and it's not a city. And here too, we have quite a few vegan friends in our area. So you can always find them, I think. And so that is one important thing, to have that support. Yeah.
That's very true. It's very important to find like-minded people. So tell us about Proveg International.
So Proveg is one of the biggest vegan or vegan friendly organizations in the world. We do diet change, not animal welfare, but diet change towards sustainable, compassionate diets. We are an organization of 250 staff, active in 15 countries. And basically, this is what we are about. We are trying to talk to all kinds of stakeholders, from the consumers up to the United Nations level, about reducing the consumption and production of animal products. And we have interventions like we do lobbying, we do innovation and helping companies. We do education to schools, but also to doctors, medical professionals. We have consumer programs like the Veggie Challenge. Yeah, many different programs in many different countries. So it's hard to explain in a nutshell, but they're all interventions directed at trying to change the food system in the direction of plant-based.
And tell us how it came about.
Yeah, Proveg came about the work that I did for my organization in Belgium, and the work that the current president or CEO of Proveg, Sebastian Joy, did for his organization in Germany. We were thinking, like, we were meeting all kinds of other organizations as well in the context of European meetings. And we were thinking, like, what if we just can operate under the same flag, all of us, like, instead of like having all these different organizations, why can't we be some kind of Greenpeace of veganism? And that's active in many countries. And in the end, that's what we did. Yeah, now we are 15 countries, and we're looking to have more in the future. But that's basically the genesis story.
Well, that's amazing. So if someone wants to get involved with your organization, how would they do that?
Yeah, I mean, best thing is to check out our website, proveg.org. There are always some job vacancies online. But yeah, subscribe to newsletter, the usual things. If you're, depending on where you are, there might be a Proveg in your country. We're most active in Europe, I would say.
And so how has your role changed throughout the years with Proveg?
Well, I was actually, before I did that, I founded, after I came back from the US, I founded a nonprofit in Belgium. I was director of that for 15 years. So director of a staff of around 12 people. And then in, I think, 2014, I had a burnout and I stopped doing that. And then I went, after some break, I went ahead as more as self-employed and a consultant. And I wasn't like deeply involved, not even in Proveg, not involved on day-to-day level, not on the payroll. It's like more a board function, an advisory function. So I have, my direction has been like towards a more meta level. So I was a person who spoke to meat eaters, let's say, and now I'm speaking a lot to the people who speak to the meat eaters, so the activists. I really have written and talked a lot about and for people who are already convinced, how they can do better, how they can be more convincing in terms of communication, how can they can be more effective in terms of strategy. So that's the content of my book, How to Create a Vegan World. Also, that's also my blog. So my writings and my thoughts are mostly about that, about strategy, about how we can speed up this transition to a plant-based, compassionate world.
And so what are the top strategies for effective communication?
For communication, like if you talk about one-to-one or even more mass communication, I would say, I mean, there's many ways to tackle this, but let's say one thing is a very basic thing, is that you have to depart from your audience. So one way I say this is, you are not your audience. You are not the people you want to reach. The people you want to reach are different from you. And you try to understand what it is that interests them. And so we can all believe that we have a lot of interesting stuff to talk about, and we do. But if nobody listens, or if it's too ambitious for people, or if it's too controversial for people, it's not worth much. There's not much value in speaking our minds without anything else. There is only value in a message if that message is heard and accepted and acted upon. So we have to formulate our message in a way that that can be made possible, rather than saying like, I'm going to say it like it is, I'm going to speak my mind, I'm going to say whatever I want to say. That's not a virtue. I mean, that sounds good, that feels good maybe, but the animals are not really helped with that. So that I would say is maybe the first requirement or good practice of good communication, that you think from the viewpoint, you take the viewpoint of the audience, you put yourself in their shoes.
So I have a little speaking engagement this weekend with a group of spiritual people. Now, they're not vegan. So what would you recommend? How would I go about speaking to them?
Yeah, I mean, you could, I don't know, you probably have an idea of what they are interested in terms of spirituality, maybe the traditions. I don't know if it's Christian or whatever it is, and try to seek for some points of commonality. Um, I would maybe, so we're all very prone to talk about veganism, but veganism is a high bar, a bridge too far for many people. So, is there a way that we can connect with these people without immediately talking about what they have to do? Like all the sacrifices they have to make, or at least I think they have to make sacrifices in order to, yeah, to help animals or to help the planet or whatever. So, I think I would I would speak about to spiritual people. I would speak about maybe compassion, golden rule. Um, Spirituality is in the end about I would say about connection, about doing good, about the heart, about empathy, in most traditions at least. So I think there's a lot of touch points there. I have not spoken often to spiritual audiences. I like to though, but yeah, I think there's quite a bit of touch points. The thing is always that no matter how strong and convincing the arguments, um, in the end, the consequence of caring about animals and opening your heart to them, the consequence is going to be a behavior change in terms of eating, in terms of the way you donate or spend your money or whatever. Um, and that change, the fact that people have to change or think they have to change, and I think it's a good thing that they change in that regard, that will often stop them from thinking about animals because they don't want to change. So what we will see is what we call motivated reasoning. And motivated reasoning is that you are going to find yourself or move towards the outcome that you want, reason yourself to the outcome that you want. And the outcome that you want is that you can keep eating animals. In most people's case, it's that. So they're going to try to find excuses and rationalizations. And therefore, it would be good to show people that the sacrifice is not too big. And that's why it's always interesting to work with good food, like rather than just arguments, to also work with, like, can we give them something to taste and something good. If it's not good, you can't do it. But I think that, like, if people have a good experience of vegan food, it takes down some of the barriers that they're putting up against thinking about animals as important beings, as sentient beings. Yeah. You're on mute. You're on mute.
Okay, yes, because of tech difficulties. So that makes a lot of sense. So what is like a really good plate that you like to share with your audience, and also everyone that's watching? Please let us know where you're watching from.
You mean a recipe or something? Or yeah,
Yes.
I mean, I don't talk about food, but what I was meaning was, like, if there's a chance to, like, in a discussion, in a confrontation, in an engagement with people, whether it's a group or it's a one person, if there's a chance to do something with food, to actually taste it, that would be helpful. I'm not talking about like describing food or anything, but it would be about serving something or cooking with them or going to a restaurant with them, um, to do that together with the conversation about the food. Yeah.
Right. And it does make a big difference. So, so you have a lot of strategies here, and I love the way that you're calm. What do you see as the, I mean, what do you think about the way that this, how do we stop this vegan against vegan?
The vegan against vegan, yeah. Yeah, that has been going on for quite some time. And yeah, people trying to out vegan each other and trying to like say like, look, I'm more vegan, or like that's the effect at least, like, I'm not eating this but you are eating that, so you're not a real vegan, or you are not speaking out about against Palestine, or you are not doing this or you are doing that, so you're not a real vegan. And there's many things to say here. I think one of them is, first of all, if we make it too difficult, if we make the price of admission to our group very high, if we make that price very high, we're going to end up with a very small group, right? So, and we don't want a small group. We want a big group. We want a vegan world, not a vegan club. So, therefore, I think it's really important to allow many people into a group and to not be too strict about the rules. Like if we say like you can be one of us because you eat this or that now and then, well, that's a loss for the animals, because that person could help animals. It's not because they're not a perfect vegan that they can't help animals. And if you look at it, it's strange the way our movement operates, the way we put attention on perfect practice, perfect behavior, eating behavior. That is really something like exceptional. Like, you can be an environmentalist and fly now and then. You can call yourself a feminist and do things that other feminists don't necessarily like. There's variation in these things. But in our case, it seems like, yeah, you have to be a vegan in order to belong. In order to be part of the animal movement, you have to be vegan. And I understand that. I understand that desire, and understand that, like, if we want to help animals, we shouldn't participate in their oppression with our consumption. But still, it does exclude all the people who are not ready to go vegan. And we can insist and we can cry and we can stand on our head saying that they have to go vegan, they should go, that it's their moral obligation. But if they don't, they don't. And we should allow people to help animals and help the planet without being vegan. So I think that's a very important thing. And we should also remember that of all the things that people can do for the animals, for the planet, there's the vegan thing is actually not the most important thing. You can compare it with, or you can contrast it with some other things. For instance, well, there's not too many things that people can do, but there's a couple of categories. One is consumption. The other is donations, giving money to organizations who help animals. And the other is activism and advocacy and speaking out. And those latter two, money and speaking out, advocacy, are actually more important than the food we put into your mouth. We can save a lot more animals by being good activists than we can be by being perfect, than we can do by being perfect vegans. So I'm not saying people should not be vegan, but we should all realize that, I would say, that the relative impact of that, of one person being vegan. And I think that the bottom line, or the what we should all do if we really love animals, is speak out in a good, professional, pragmatic, impactful way.
Well, that's very true. And we have JJ here watching us. Let us know where you're watching from. Thanks for watching, everyone. Vegan Knowledge JJ, and I'll allow them to make the connection.
Mm-hmm.
What would you say about people that say, well, if you eat animals, you don't love them?
Yeah, I mean, Again, you can understand that statement, but it's not true, basically. I mean, many people love animals and they eat them. And even if you say, or if you think that that's not true, that is still their experience. Their experience is, I love animals and I eat them. And I did it myself. You know, I loved animals while I was still eating them. Sometimes this kind of guilt trip can work, but oftentimes it won't. Oftentimes it's like, yeah, you make me feel guilty, so I'm not going to listen to you. The distance between you and them just increases, and they're further away from going vegan than before. So, in general, I think guilt is not the best strategy or tactic. So, I would say, like, yeah, allow for the fact that people love animals, or at least say that, believe that they love animals, even though they are harming them. I mean, you could say about me, or maybe about you, or some people listening, like, if you really love people, if you love people in developing countries, if you really care about them, you wouldn't ever wear uh, clothing that is not fair trade, for instance, you know. And most of us are using clothing that is not fair trade. Does it mean we don't care? No, we have a certain capacity to care. We have certain priorities. Some people could tell us, like, if you care about the climate, you wouldn't fly. You know, and maybe it's all true. But then the best thing in the end is to be like alone in your house and to not come out, and that's not the best way to change the world either. You know, like to withdraw into your own private little garden and to be very, very, very vegan there, and maybe not have an impact on anybody because you're not seeing anybody. This is the real world. We have to live in it. We have to make concessions. We have to be pragmatic here and there, and do things that are not ideal. You cannot be perfect in this world.
Right. So, what would you say is the attitude? I mean, I feel your energy is very calm. And so, what's the attitude to have when you're going into speaking with someone who might be a little bit curious about veganism?
Yeah, I mean, again, I would say, like try to find out what resonates with them. Is it animals? Is it the planet? Is it their health? Try to have um, especially, and some people are automatically good at it, some people are really bad at this, and to some extent you can train it, to some extent it's just a talent or whatever, but be really aware of the other person during the conversation. Be aware of when they're not listening anymore, when they want to say something. Don't keep talking all the time. Don't think that, like, the more words you put in, the better. It's probably the opposite. You know, it's not like every word that you put in it has it adds to the impact. You know, it's much more about listening, about asking questions, about them coming up with answers, than it is about you downloading information on them. Many people don't get that, and I think we would be much better communicators if we listened more to people, to their needs, to whatever interests them, and play into that. Not try to manipulate them or try to convince them, but just, yeah, listen to their experience, and understand also that they have preconceptions and biases. They might feel guilty already. So be somebody who can take them on the road, and explore things with them, rather than be the person who makes them feel bad about things. Yeah.
Right. And that makes so much sense because a lot of times people are trying to make them feel guilty, or you might say, oh, yeah, I put them in their place. Right. And that to me thinks, well, we just lost somebody there.
Mhm. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think that it's it's so easy as a vegan to lose somebody else. I mean, by default, you've already lost them. You have to win them, basically. You know, you start from a losing position. You start with some sort of handicap because they don't want to listen to you. They don't want to hear what you have to say, because what you have to say is a very difficult message. Probably they know that. as opposed to the message from the meat industry. The meat industry is telling them, like, look, vegan products are unhealthy, and oh, they love that message. That's a message that tells them you don't have to change. So they're eager to believe that message. They are having a very hard time to believe our message, or maybe they believe it, but they protest. They don't want to believe it because they know believing it has consequences. So what you have to do is take it generally slowly, and I'm not saying always. Like maybe one other very important principle in terms of communicating with people is to be flexible and to be able to adapt yourself towards how they are. And you may see, or you may have the experience that a certain person that is somebody who would change, or who would wake up and pay attention when you speak somebody somewhat more powerful, and maybe somebody somewhat more guilt tripping towards them. It's perfectly possible. Different people are different, and so ideally how to address different people. So yeah.
Well, what about, I have people come to me all the time that say, well, I'm still working on this friend and they still don't want to do it. And again, they didn't listen to me. And it's just every time they see the friend, they're probably saying, they're still saying stuff. And what do you think about that?
Yeah, I even have people I hear, like, oh, there's this person, and they're like 97% there, and I'm working on them to get them to the 100%, and I'm thinking, like, why bother about those last 3%? How much effort do you want to put into that? Why is it so important to you that they're 100%? If they're doing 97%, they're doing 97% of the work. And you could do other things rather than focusing on that one person. And if you focus on one person, it would be ideally, I would say, if you put effort into convincing somebody, then don't do it with like somebody who's like, just, let's say they're an average person who don't have any particular influence. But if you compare that to a person who decides what's on the menu of a cafeteria, that is much more important. To convince them to put something on the menu is much more important than to convince somebody to go vegan themselves. So think about activism, think about like the impact, think about the influence that indirectly you could have by talking to certain people, not convincing them to go vegan, but to do something for veganism, for the animals, for more options, etc. And to go back to your question, yeah, people working on somebody for them to go vegan. I think you have to give people space. And people don't want to give you the impression that they changed because of you. People are a bit like children that way, that they want to show that they come to their own conclusions. So if you constantly keep talking to them, they will have no space, and they will not be able to say that they formed their own opinions about something, because you were always there, and they will betray that they were influenced by you. And I don't think they like to say that. So if you just give them the information at some point and then let it go, and then be patient, and it can take years. But if you still see them, you give the good example, they see you eating vegan, you don't have to always necessarily repeat it and come back to it, etc. And I think that their thinking process will go on, and will go much more smooth if you don't bring it up every time, because they don't feel that they have to be defensive against you. They can feel safe with you. They can feel safe that you will not bring it up every time and make them feel bad or guilty.
I mean, those are very good points, because I realize I can catch myself, like when if I'll keep saying it to someone, I think stop, because they probably don't want to hear it. They know it. And sometimes I think they don't know it, but they do know it. Something like one of my friends said, oh yeah, I know. Because talking about health wise. And then I really thought, well, she does know, so I don't need to just keep telling her.
Mhm.
Right. So
yeah, well, people don't know everything. Of course, it might be useful to say some things in some cases, but in any case, like, don't like keep downloading every time you see a person yeah, that I think that I don't think is the best strategy.
I see a lot of guilt also, and with my work with women, particularly, that have partners that are not vegan, and they're ashamed of that.
Hmm. Yeah, yeah. I can imagine. Maybe they think it reflects badly on them. Like also about like, maybe they think that other people are gonna think they don't care enough for being with a non-vegan husband. Um, but yeah, that is it's not entirely someone's responsibility how their spouse or whoever else eats. Everybody is free to do that, and if it hasn't happened yet, I wouldn't consider it a failure. Maybe there's more responsibility with children. Like I would say, like if you're a vegan, it's obviously good if you raise your children vegan if your spouse agrees. Um, and Yeah, there I would be maybe a little bit more. I have more higher expectations, I think, because children are under your guard, and you have a certain authority over them, and you can develop certain skills to yeah, to help them make the right empathic choices. Yeah. But even then, if you don't succeed, if life gets in the way, if there's too much peer pressure and they start eating meat or whatever, yeah, I would also say like don't beat yourself on the head. They can still remember that lesson later and still go vegan when they're out of the house or whatever. I don't think the lessons you teach them are ever really lost.
Yeah, that's very true. They will at least have an awareness that most children would not have.
Yeah, yeah.
And what about, is it possible? So a lot of people ask this, is it possible to have a happy relationship with a partner that's not vegan? Or is it possible to date someone that's not vegan and have a good relationship?
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure it's possible. I think we see it enough times, but it will depend on the person. Some people can do it, and some people can't. If you can do it, it's fine, and then you still have the opportunity, probably, and the options to help them get more vegan and more aligned with you. Um, if you can't, if people don't change, and if it's too hard for you, then you can always choose to end the relationship, obviously. And I can imagine in many cases like people not sharing those values that you are so committed to is very hard. The person that you love the most, that they're not sharing that they're maybe indifferent, or that they don't have the guts or the discipline or whatever to do that. Yeah, I can imagine that is difficult, and I'm not in that situation myself. My girlfriend has been vegan for a long time. um, but yeah, I think life is easier, relationships are better, and activism is more fun if you're in it together with somebody else.
Yeah, I think you're right, definitely. So I want to hear more about your book. How did that come to be?
So yeah, basically when I was leaving my organization, I started to uh, talk about what I had learned in the 15 years or whatever that I had done it, and I spoke about what I'd learned to other activists, and I developed some course or series of lectures, and those at some point somebody convinced me, like she said, like yeah, you have a lot of good ideas, you should put them into a book. And Yeah, that's what I did at some point. So the book, How to Create a Vegan World, is about a pragmatic approach to change, and it's been translated into 14 languages now, and it's doing quite good in terms of the movement. I mean, it's a niche book, of course. It was never meant to reach big audiences, but it had its effect. I think many people have read it in the movement. There's also people who criticize it because they don't find it pure or black and white enough. I say things like, yeah, reducing is a very important strategy. Meat reducing is a very important strategy towards the vegan world. I say things like that 100% consistency is overrated. and that we shouldn't make it all too difficult. Even though I'm pretty much 100% vegan, but I don't think you necessarily have to expect it from other people. I say things like that we don't necessarily need to talk about the animals. We can talk about environment or health or whatever works. So basically, pragmatism is about doing what works. And I contrast it with idealism, which for me is idealism in a narrow sense, is about following a certain ideal and a certain set of rules. So I'm more results based. Some people are more rules based. They would say, like, what does veganism say? What are the rules of veganism? What does it dictate in terms of our communication? It would dictate, for instance, for them that we can never talk about reduction, because reduction is kind of like allowing people to still eat meat. I think whatever works. Look at results, look at consequences, look at outcomes, and that is what the animals care about. They don't care about rules, orthodoxies, principles, dogma. They care about results, about getting out of the cages.
Yeah, that's very true. And I've said in my own work that we have to let people move on their journey. And people get mad at me and they say, we don't have time for that, right?
Mhm.
And it's not about me. I mean, I would love for everybody to go vegan overnight, but that's not realistic. And it's not, and then that's like you're saying, it's too much for some people.
Yeah, I mean, I understand the urgency that people feel, but I think we can't afford to be impatient, you know, because this is going to, I mean, okay, you can say that the world is going to hell and it might not exist in 20 years or something. It's not my assumption. I think things are very urgent, but I think that we're going to stick around, and this transition is going to take some time. It's not a sprint, it's not a marathon, it's an ultra marathon. And we have to be patient. We have to be in this for as long as it takes. We have to be in this for as long as we can and not burn out. And if we're going to be very impatient and very frustrated, then I think we will burn out. I've been into this for 25 years. I'm still quite motivated to do this. And I think part of that is that yeah, I let go to some extent. Like I accept that it's going to take a while. I accept that this challenge is the biggest one any human group of people, any group of people has ever undertaken. This is about changing the dietary habits of 8 billion people. That is a huge undertaking. That is not going to happen, not even in a generation or 2 generations, maybe. But still, we can be hopeful and believe that it might happen in our lifetimes this century. Maybe not mine or your lifetime, but maybe the lifetime of the very young people. They might live to see the day.
What do you see in your future? I mean, for you, what are your what is something that you're looking forward to doing in the next?
Yeah, one thing. So I've been doing a lot of activism. I'm also writing a science fiction novel, which is also about animals, or about, yeah, ethical dilemmas around animals and food, etc. And yeah, been working a lot on that. I hope to be a novelist someday, as part of my occupation, and influence people that way.
Well, yeah, there's many different ways that we can influence people, and allowing is very important. So, tell me about slow opinion.
Slow opinion is just an idea that I coined, is a term for, yeah, as the name says, being slow in forming an opinion. So it would mean that you're not going to, like, you see something online, a fact, or some statement about a celebrity that you hate, and you rush to an opinion and say, like, oh, this is horrible, blah blah blah. So slow opinion would be about taking the time and saying, like, maybe I don't have all the information here. Maybe I don't have a good look on things. I'm just reading an article. Do I know what happens inside the mind of this person? Do I know what's happening in this situation? In many cases, the answer is no. And that would lead you to, like, read more, hear more, explore more before you say that this is my opinion. And we live in a world of very fast opinion. Everybody wants to have an opinion about everything. I think it's quite damaging, because many of these opinions are uninformed, not good, are not substantiated. So I think we should slow down and say, like, look, this is I'm in thinking mode. I don't have an opinion on this. Get back to me in a week or something. And if we have an opinion, we can always say that this is our preliminary opinion. Like, this is our opinion that's our opinion as it is now, and it might change. And we shouldn't hold on to these opinions too strongly. We shouldn't, yeah, identify with them too much, because they might change, knowing that they might change. And I think that would allow for much better communication, like a much less polarization. It would allow for more empathy among people, because you're not jumping to judge. So would have a lot of benefits, I think, if people slow down in forming their opinion, in judging, etc.
I think you're right, because so quick we are to judge about people that eat meat that we just shut ourselves down, right? We create a big wall where we aren't able to listen and understand. Now, I have friends that I'm sure that it's a lot harder for them to embrace veganism. I mean, for the struggles that they go through in their life. And it would be easy for me if I didn't know that, or even knowing it, to not even take that into consideration, but to realize that this person is going through possibly divorce, losing their house, having all these other really very debilitating life struggles, and then to put on them, why can't you just see that we need you to change right now? And so I think that's where it's the slow opinion and looking at all the facts with compassion and empathy can really bridge that friendship. And through the bridge of friendship is what will create change.
Yeah, I think it's all about relationships, and being good to other people, and that starts with, or part of that at least, is the idea that we never have all the information that we need. We never see the whole picture. I mean, there's things happening with people that we don't know about, and we might think that a certain person is even in power, and they're powerful, and that's why we don't like them, because they're more powerful or successful than we are. But even then, they might be miserable, and they might have a lot of problems, and they might fight with themselves, etc. So there's always a story going on that we don't know about, even if we think people are very successful or whatever. So to start from that supposition, I think, makes one more empathic, and that empathy is maybe part of what opens the door to change.
Well, definitely. I think we definitely need empathy and logic. I mean, and it sounds like you have a very good balance there of both, right? And of slowing down. Have you always been very cautious in your life? I mean,
I've always been cautious in my thinking. I It's hard for me to be sure about anything, which has advantages and disadvantages. It's hard to come to a conclusion about very difficult and complicated topics. Um, and sometimes that is good. Sometimes that is not so good, or that is like that. Maybe there's situations where you should take a stance and judge because something is really bad, and then if you can't do it because you're uncertain, then maybe you slow down change. But yeah, that is the way I function. Yeah.
all right. Well, I see that we're coming to the end of our time. Let me again tell us what are your final thoughts? And also, everyone, please subscribe. And I want to also remind you all to, if you are so inclined, to visit us at www.all-creatures.org and help support this program with a one-time donation or recurring donation. We would be very grateful. So I'd love to hear some final last words and where everyone can get your book and follow you.
So my thoughts, the ideas that I have, I share them on my Substack. So that's like a blog. So it's tobiasleenaert.substack.com. You can follow there, and also on LinkedIn. My book is available, on Amazon and online booksellers. And as final thoughts from my part, I would say that this is what we're doing to animals is the I would agree with Yuval Harari, who said that it might be the biggest crime in history, and that we need all the people on board, and we can do it. We can help in many different ways of advocacy, giving money, going vegan, all kinds of things. We have to appreciate that people do things differently, that there's disagreements about strategy, even about practicing veganism. And we shouldn't get bogged down by the details. Like there's billions and billions of animals to be helped. We cannot fight over the small stuff, and we have to find ways of working together productively, pragmatically, with a focus on impact. That's all that matters, I think.
Well, that's beautiful. And Vegan Church Services perfectly said. Thank you. Yes, I love that. I mean, I love that welcoming and where it's not so rigid, because rigid is it blocks, and no one's perfect. There's no perfect person. There's no perfect vegan. So when we all can come together and just keep moving forward on the path of veganism, we really can change the world.
All right. Let's hope so.
Well, thank you so much, Tobias, and everyone for watching. I really appreciate it. And make sure that you check out Tobias's book and all of your upcoming work and the Substack. So, and thank you,
Thank you
JJ
for
and
having me
Vegan
here.
Church Service. And Tobias, you'll have to come back again.
Thank you. Have a good night.
Thank you.
Bye bye.
Bye, everyone.